Welcome everyone to the Starting Point of New Jersey's education channel. We are privileged today to have our founder, Vince DiPasquale, join me, Loretta, Depka, for our chat about spirituality and sports. You can find this again on our website, and please visit our website and our education channel. So without much further ado, I think what I really want to do is invite everyone who's here, if they have a question, to feel free to add it to the chat. And if we have time, we will certainly try to get to it. So you all really know who Vince DiPasquale is. He is our founder of the Starting Point 42 years ago. We do mental health and wellness. He is our leader, beloved. He does his own lecture series on Wednesdays from noon and 7 p.m. I don't know if you know this, but Vince was actually a baseball coach. He umped baseball and he refereed basketball for a number of years. So between being a pastoral counselor, at least that's what his degree is in, he really is the perfect person to talk about spirituality and sports. So without further ado, welcome Vince. And Vince, why don't you jump in there and tell us why you chose this topic, spirituality and sports?
Well, for a couple of reasons. I think, first of all, I like the word spirituality because it talks about developing your personal spirit. And sports are supposed to be a way in which people can develop that inner spirit, a sense of who they are as a person. I think that, unfortunately, what happens a lot of times in our society, we have a tendency to take something that could be very beautiful and very special. And then, of course, I always joke, I say the god of money takes over. And as a result, then we materialize everything and make it into a business. But sports really were a way in which people were able to build their character, to play, to have fun. I think one of the greatest movies I ever saw, and I recommend everybody to watch it, is a movie called Sandlot. Sandlot's a very simple movie that talks about a bunch of kids just having fun and doing pickup games of baseball, and when they lose the ball, they got to call the game off. I remember as a kid back in Camden, we used to play at Broadway and Everett. Remember that, Billy? And basically, we used to have to, way back beyond Billy, back in the 40s, we actually used an axe handle for a bat and we made our own baseball. Because, to buy a baseball then was like buying the most gigantic thing on the face of the earth. And then I think what happened over a period of time, we had organized sports. And organized sports were great if they were done, in a way of being more teachable and giving people a chance to build character. But again, it's like anything else. You got to be careful. I always talk about the battle between what I call the god of spirit and the god of money. I talk about materialization and spirituality. And I think what happens after a period of time, we begin to lose it. I remember back when I first started refereeing basketball, I was a priest at the time, and also when I was umpiring baseball, and I could probably tell you plenty of stories. And one of the things I always remembered was, it wasn't the kids so much. I enjoyed the kids. And many of the kids would say to me, I wish my parents would stay home. They embarrass me all the time. And I think sometimes what happens after a period of time, we have a tendency with kids, instead of letting them be kids, letting them play, let them have fun, and let them just enjoy the sport. They have a tendency to get very much caught up in competition, very much caught up in performance, and then we get caught up in expectations. And that's
I remember going to Little League games, Vince, and in recent years, and listening to what the parents are yelling, and like that this next ball means that he won't get into college. He won't get that scholarship. That kind of pressure can't be good.
I'll give you an example. I was up on a little league game in Monroe Township, and these are kids 9, 10, 11 years old. And the catcher probably weighed about, I don't know, 30 pounds. He was a skinny little thing. And he had the equipment on. The equipment hung all over him. And of course, being an umpire, I try to hide behind him. Well, I wasn't hiding behind him. Thank God I was using the balloon back then. Anyway, his father is behind the backstop yelling at him, block the plate. Be like Johnny Bench. Block that plate. Block that plate. Well, the kid coming around third base was 3 times his size. And if he really did block the plate, he would have killed the kid. But in Little League, you're not allowed to block the plate. So after the play was over, I went back to the dad and I said, do me a favor, will you, sir? He said, what? Get the hell in the stands. I said, if you stay back here, I'm going to have the cops remove you. He looked at me with these eyes and stuff, and he went off into the stands. But they get crazy after a while. And sometimes I think what happens is parents have a tendency, and adults, to try to live their life through their children. They may not have been able to do that, but then they have a tendency to push. A good example of this is gymnastics, and especially with the Olympics and everything else, where kids are driven so hard to perform instead of looking at these things as a place just to play and have fun. Billy's here, and he remembers back when we had our team in Camden, and Billy was our pitcher, and basically, we had a struggle for uniforms. Some of them were a little ragtail, what could I tell you? But we had a lot of fun, and everybody kind of chipped in and had a great time. And it wasn't like, I'm better than you, you're better than me, I'm going to outperform you. Why'd you put him in? All this kind of stuff. So we lose the tenor of what it's really all about. And sports are a way of actually building spirit and developing a sense of spirit, which is important. And I think that's important when it comes to any kind of a sport. But unfortunately, we've kind of moved everything into the whole concept of business. And this is not just in sports, it's in everything in life. We turn something simple into a business proposition so we can make money off of it, but we can also exploit people as a result of it. So many ball players and people in college and high school got pushed so far that after a while, they didn't even want to play anymore. It was scary. And so
the other side of that, though, don't you think that there is, I know for me in high school, if it wasn't for sports, I would have never entered the business world because it taught me so much.
But that's what sports are supposed to do. They're supposed to prepare you for adulthood by giving you a sense of character, being able to have you begin to develop some of the gifts and things you have as a person. But to have that stuff happen naturally, not to start people when they're in peewee, and then move up. You got to go slowly and let people develop their character and things to that effect. And so as a result, now even high school sports today are extremely competitive to a point where it's scary. And I often wonder sometimes if I really would want to umpire and referee today. But I realize, it's like anything else. I'll tell you a funny story. When I was refereeing the Atlantic City High Pleasantville game, I'm going back now a lot of years. And the main player for Atlantic City, he was supposed to be the star and everything. Well, I called a 5th foul on him and fouled him out. Well, the place went half berserk. And so basically, when he had to leave the court, his mother got upset, came out of the stands and chased me around the court with an umbrella, trying to hit me. Took 3 police officers to calm her down, and me hiding in the locker room. I can write a book on stories. But the other piece that's important is to realize it can really build good character in people. Give them a sense of confidence and make them realize they can achieve things and do things in life, but to do it in a positive way, in a spiritual way, not in, you got to compete so we can make money, we can do this and we can do that. Pressure is the thing we have to watch out for. Little League has been turned into a business now. Most parents have to buy $120 bat for a kid, you know, and now the sports world, you know, is picking up all these things. So it's just kind of interesting. And what I worry about is it's beginning to destroy something that's supposed to be a game. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoying. I mean, I'll tell you, I played softball, and I played on a team called the South Camden Saints. And we had a lot of fun. But the first year we were in existence, we were the Bad News Bears. We lost every game, 15 games. We were 0-15. But we had so much fun.
And that's character building. It's exactly what everybody needs.
Yeah. But then 2 years later, we actually won. We were the champions. Everybody was backbiting at each other. If a guy made an error, they'd scream at him and yell at him. The pressure was on unbelievably to be able to win. It was much more fun losing, I'll be honest with you. And yet at the same time, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's not about winning or losing. It's about how you play the game. It's about building character and moving in a good direction. You know, I had the great example when I was becoming a basketball official, when I was in the priesthood. And we went to a training seminar at Temple University. And a gentleman named Sid Borgia, I know some of you probably don't know him, way back a long time ago when Bob Cousy and Bill Russell and people like that were playing for the Celtics. Okay, Sid Borgia was the dean of the NBA officials. And he was a character. And he would teach us things and say, look, this is a game of fun. You have to have fun. You have to interact in a funny way. He says, what you do is you have to realize you're going to call the game, keep the game moving, let people have fun, and don't worry about whether it's right or wrong. Make everybody believe it's right, even if it's not. And so he made us do all kinds of crazy things. And so you learn the underpinning of a game, which makes the game a lot of fun. Like when I umpired baseball, I would say to the two coaches at the beginning of the game, I used to have fun. I used to enjoy it. I say, now I got to explain something to you guys before the game starts. I said, I have a disease. You look at me and say, what do you mean you have a disease? Well, I got this terrible disease. Every time you yell at me, the strike zone gets smaller. It's really this unbelievable disease. I said, so I really would appreciate you not yelling at me, because then we're going to have a pinpoint for a strike zone. They looked at me and they shook their heads and they actually went back to the dugout. But see, good coaches and people that believe in the sport can laugh at stuff like that. They can have fun with stuff like that. And fun can be in a lot of different directions. But we have to be able to realize sometimes that we just get upset. And the thing I worry a lot about today is we compare everything to professional sports. And the thing that I learned in that seminar, that Sid Borgia taught us, he said, remember something about professional sports. Professional sports is a business. It's not a game. And it's played to the crowd. So when you learn to referee, do not model after professional sports. Because you'll notice, and Billy knows this, they walk like crazy. They take 18 steps to go to the basket, to dunk. So it's crazy. But they have a whole different set of rules. Also, this franchise player, whoever he is making the big money, people are coming to see him, is not allowed to foul out. You give the foul to the man next to him. So the underlying rules and things you learn, but people understand that. And they accept it. That's on a professional level. But on a high school and the college level, it's more building character. It's beginning to develop individuals. And that's why I always talk about the spirituality of it. To me, sports was always something sacred. It was a place where you could celebrate life, enjoy life, have fun. You could play. You could enjoy one another. And at the end of the game, you shake hands, you hug one another. It's not like I'm better, I'm out to get you, or something to that effect. And so we see this happening. And society also is a microcosm of sports. So basically, we see what happens in our society. You know, there's a beautiful historian, Maslow, who wrote about history a long time ago, and he said, history is a barometer. The barometer of history are our cities. If cities begin to decay and begin to go down, then everything else will go down along with it. And so we have to get out of the gladiator mentality. We have to get out of the mentality that this is it. And then the other piece of it, which we'll talk about later, what we're doing to sports. Now it's become a fundraiser for business and cities, gambling, fantasy leagues, all kinds of stuff. And now you look at TV, and there's 88 ads, you know, for all kinds of sports betting, all this kind of stuff and everything else. And CP Marachi did a great story about that on one of our podcasts. If you ever get a chance to watch it. God rest his soul. He was our gambling counselor. Did a beautiful job on that. But I just think spirituality means that the sports are supposed to develop your spirit. You have to have fun with it and enjoy it. And on a personal level, I love refereeing. I loved umpiring. And to me, it was almost like an adventure. And I also learned something else. If you really get into sports, you learn how to block out the craziness and the insanity of the world around you. People don't understand this. Who truly are into, like I was refereeing a basketball game, I don't hear stuff from the stands. And my wife will tell you, she came to one of my games and never wanted to come back again because everybody was yelling and screaming at me. And I told her afterwards, I didn't even hear them. And Billy knows when you get into the zone, your whole mind goes into that, and that teaches you about life. Because sometimes in life, you got to kind of sort out all that negativity and that stuff around you and stay in the zone of what you're doing. We see this in business and everything else. We can get very well distracted, especially in our society today. We get distracted by everything. And so we have to learn what the value of all these things really are. And there's a real value in sports.
Vince, you know, I know that the kids today all do gaming on their phones, yeah, with their fingers. We can't categorize that as a sport, correct?
No.
Because there's no character building, right?
No. It's more isolation.
Okay.
And the sad part about it is now we look at sports and it's moved down to the college level and it's starting on the high school level now, where we actually are computerizing games.
Right.
And we're basically trying to figure out the other side via computers, via all kinds of watching all kinds of film and stuff to this effect. That used to be only on a professional level. Now it's moved down to a college level. And a lot of these big high schools that are very competitive are now moving it down to their level. We'll actually send a scout, or they call them a scout, or a person to go out to a game and actually, you know, use a camera to actually, and now with phones, you can do it very easily, learn about other teams and things in this direction. And so it's becoming more specialized. Just to give you an example, I want to go back to the year 1950 just for a couple of minutes. My wife's heard this story plenty of times. But in 1950, you had the Phillies play the Yankees in the World Series here in Philadelphia. Back then, they were called the Whiz Kids, the Phillies. And the Yankees, of course, won in 4 games. But the games were highly competitive and a lot of fun. But things were different back then. For example, my uncle took me to the 3rd game of the World Series in 1950. I was 10 years old. And that's when sports meant something to kids. You know, I can still remember almost every play from that game because I was so excited to go to a World Series game. And I remember the 2 pitchers, Robin Roberts and Vic Raschi. And my wife and I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting Robert Roberts at a luncheon. And they both pitched 2 complete games of 10 innings. And then I saw
Doesn't happen anymore, does it?
I saw Joe DiMaggio hit the home run to win the game in the 10th inning. But see, it was a different world back then. Unfortunately, what happened is the owners exploited the players. And so then the players went in the other direction. And now they're trying to exploit the owners. So it's like a big game on a professional level, because I still remember some of the Phillies ball players lived in Camden, and you passed them on the street. I remember a third baseman for the Phillies back then, Billy, I don't know if you remember him or not, Willie Puttenhead Jones. He played third base. They used to call him Barrel Chest. They were characters. And in the wintertime, he worked for Food Fair because he had to earn money in the wintertime. So they had jobs in the winter. So it was more like, something exciting. And then we lost that because now it becomes every day. Even you go to a ball game today, people hang around bars, food areas. Half the people even watch the game. They go there for socialization. And now even, unfortunately, we get into things like gambling, lust, money, sex. I mean, you go to a game and a lot of times they pass out these gentleman club cards to you, all kinds of stuff. So it's turned into a different world. And that's sad. But it's an indicator of what our world is. Our world has turned into that. And so the sense of faith, the sense of belief, a sense of just being able to enjoy and celebrate other people, that kind of a game. But also, sports are teachable moments. You learn traits, you learn gifts, you learn things you can do. And they build your character for the future, as they're supposed to do. But if we also do things too fast, then we lose the spirit. And that's what scares me the most. I mean, right now we have kids, on the little league level, playing under the lights, playing with all kinds of equipment. And basically, by the time they get to high school, they don't even want to play anymore. All the excitement's gone. They already had it in Little League. They had it in other parts of life. The excitement's gone. There's no idea of moving forward, of developing. I was upset. Our township 2 years ago can't get a high school league going anymore. High school kids don't want to play ball anymore. And so that on the lower level, yeah, but not on the higher level, because they're bored. And I equate a lot of this to losing of that spirit. We see it happening with drug addiction and stuff in teenagers, and then the other thing a lot of times, and we see it here at Starting Point, teenagers coming in for therapy for anxiety, all kinds of tension, because of pressures being put on them to perform. And not just in sports, in other areas of life too. And I think we just have to learn how to be kids again, how to play again, how to have fun again, how to enjoy. I mean, Billy will tell you, we had so much fun back then. We just, busted each other like crazy and had a good time with one another. And then we'd also meet kids from other races and other places. And, we just had a good time together. So it's almost like we have to look at sports through a different set of eyes. But somehow we're going to bring the spirit back into it, the character building and the fun back into it. I think that is so important, especially on the lower level.
You do see, you're starting to see a lot of the athletes give back. Now, when we talked about this the other day, we were talking about, are they giving back because of the spirit of the game? Or are they giving back because they just got in trouble and they have to redeem their reputation?
I think you see both. I think you have the rare player who really does give back to the community, and many of them will give somewhat back to the community. But a lot of times when somebody gets into trouble, drugs or domestic violence or things of that effect, and they get suspended, then basically all of a sudden they become community orientated, because basically they want to be accepted back into the fold. And so as a result, sometimes we have to look at the motive. the motive of why they're doing it, and so it comes in that direction too. But unfortunately, we do everything in extremes, recovery, everything in extremes. We had a point where the players made very little money, owners made a lot. Now, as a result of that, you had a lot of things take place, like the Black Sox scandal in the 20s, where basically they threw the World Series. And I'll show you about sports, which are so interesting. One of my favorite ball players, Shoeless Joe Jackson. Now, he's a country kid who was not very well educated, but he was probably one of the greatest ball players ever to live. Real simple guy, came right out of the farmland. And he was on that Chicago team with the Black Sox scandal. He got involved in it and was banned from baseball. But the crazy part about it is he didn't even know he was in the crowd that was doing it, because basically he just went along with the crowd. He batted .375 in the World Series, which is phenomenal. He's supposed to be throwing the World Series, and he was almost a candidate for the MVP. It's because nobody took him under his wing and helped him. And so he just slid right into the thing everybody else slides into. My favorite ball player of all time, because of character and character building, is Lou Gehrig. Beautiful man, beautiful man. And you watch his story and the type of life that he lived. He was totally different. He was almost an enigma in the game, because basically he really was able to maintain a sense of family, a sense of community, a sense of just quiet, a simple, humble man of humility who had great talent, but he didn't exploit it. He didn't brag about it. He just lived a simple life until he ended up, with Lou Gehrig's disease and died from it. But a beautiful man. Now, so you have them come along.
Isn't it the responsibility of the coaches, at least with the younger kids, to enforce the spirituality of the sport, the character that needs to be, isn't that what it's all supposed to? The coach should be doing it, shouldn't they? And what happens in professional sports? Does the coach forget that he's building character, or is it just about winning?
I think you have to look at professional sports differently today. I think there was character building in professional sports years ago. And I refer to them as the characters. People were able to look at things through the eyes of fun. Let me give you an example. Some beautiful people came through the ranks, and you see where people have to develop things in a way in which they enjoy life. And so we have to look at coaches on the lower level. A lot of times they're volunteers. Half of them don't know a thing about baseball or basketball. They're just like glorified babysitters. And because nobody else will do it. But to really get people dedicated, and I'm going to talk about a gentleman now, a very special gentleman, and Billy knows who I'm talking about, Woody Mignogna, a man who was so dedicated to kids, dedicated to the sport, a great teacher. He was a coach, but he also was a teacher, and he understood the personalities of the kids he worked with. And he was loved because he built spirit. That's a good example of spirituality, the spirit concept of the sport. And you've seen them over the years. One of the greatest coaches of all time was a gentleman named Connie Mack from the Philadelphia Athletics, who built character and would not get caught up in all that insanity stuff. And we see them even now, So in a lower level, we have to be able to teach. I'll give you an example. I was umpiring a high school game. No, not high school, but a township ball. And the coach didn't know a thing about baseball, not a thing. And so the pitcher was balking. Now, a balk is when you don't make the right moves on a mound. And he kept balking. So instead of me calling the balk, I called timeout, took my umpire gear off, walked out to the mound, and I spent 15 minutes teaching the kid how to pitch. And so the other coach came up to me and he said, "What are you doing? He's balking. That's our favor." I said, "No, we're here to teach. The poor kid on the mound doesn't know what he's doing." And so I took time. I held the game up. I took time to teach him how to pause so he wouldn't be balking anymore. And the kid thanked me to the highest heavens. He didn't know what he was doing. And so I think we forgot about that. So we get caught up in competition and we forget about teaching. So on that level there should be a form of teaching. And that's where it should be. I wish there were more clinics where they taught these things and the good coaches would run them, instead of just putting somebody out there and saying, "Oh, what the heck." And so that builds the character. But then you're teaching people things in that direction. So I think things are getting better in that area on the lower level. Now, unfortunately, like I said before, colleges are becoming more competitive and they have to produce. Otherwise, the coaches get fired if they don't produce. So unfortunately, that whole mentality has kind of sprung into sports on the college level now. What scares me, it starts at the top and it starts coming down. I'm afraid it is going to get to that lower level even more and more. And then you talked about kids playing games on their computer. Well, they're in the dugout of a game playing games on their computer. They're on the bench.
Oh, it's so different.
I know. I referee games where I stopped the game and told them they had to get rid of all that. Otherwise, it won't continue the game. And the coach looked at me like, I was crazy. But we don't cheer for each other. We don't, be there for each other. So
I guess what I'm hearing you say though, Vince, is it's our responsibility to participate in our community, to try to coach these teams for those of us who understand sports.
Of course. Instead
of just babysitting, that it's an opportunity to teach and learn.
Well, you need more people like Woody and people like that have believed in the sport and believed it on a spiritual level, and were able to be part of it. One of the things we did in Monroe Township was, we basically got the younger kids that graduated from high school and taught them how to be umpires and ran a school for umpires and showed them what it means to be able to keep a game moving and keep it under control so that you don't get into craziness and insanity with it. But you have to be able to have a personality too, and that's what's important. Because people that know sports have to be able to teach and not just coach. Difference between teaching and coaching. I can coach, but you got to be able to teach. And so you always have to be able to pass it down to the younger people. That's what real spirituality is. You pass things down. Like parents pass things down to their children. Then they pass things down to their grandkids, things to that effect. So I always loved some of the philosophies of the Native American Indians because they talked about sitting at the feet of your elders and learning from their example. So in sports, we need to have more elders, if you want to use the term. But you said it beautifully. More people that love the sport, are interested in the sport, and more people that want to participate and help people to grow in the sport, to build a sense of spirit, a sense of spirituality. I know sports to me have always been that. I love it, and my wife will tell you, I wish I could referee today and umpire today, but I'd be in trouble if I tried today because I'm
running back and forth on that court is for the young, right?
Well, it changes a little bit. What can I tell you? Of course, when you're in your 80s, you really think you're only 55 or 60.
That's right. It isn't until 65 that you forget that you're not 18, right?
Come on, you got to try here and there. I mean, I'm going to be 81, so I'm actually going to be 18.
There you go.
Reverse it. See how it goes?
I like that. I
Everybody
like
knows
that
what I'm
a
talking
lot.
about. Okay. So that's the whole concept of it. It's fun. But I think that's what we've lost, and we got to get it back. That's
But
where
isn't that in everything now? You know, I'm sitting here listening to you talk about sports, but where we work, we want to teach the younger people some. Now, granted, they're teaching us technology, so the least we can do is give them some of our wisdom.
Wisdom and spirit, and give them a sense of believing in what they're doing. So I can be the most technological person on the face of the earth. At the same time, be the most cold person on the face of the earth.
Right.
I mean, I can perform very well on my job, but they at the same time be a very person I don't want to be around, very negative person. It's spirit is what it comes down to. And we have to be able to see that. I mean, I always remember it was on one of the shows, I forget where, maybe Carol or Billy might remember, but there was a police officer in New York who loved his job as a traffic cop. And he used to actually sing and would talk to people and have a good time and put a show on while he was performing, you know, and he'd direct traffic, but he had a flavor to it, a character to it, you know. And another one of my favorite people is an umpire named Ron Luciano. He wrote the book called The Umpire Strikes Back. And the book is full of stories. And one of my favorite stories, I always love telling, is Ronnie. Well, he was one of these flamboyant type umpires. Everybody loved him. Real character, sense of humor, had a lot of fun. But he was umpiring the New York Yankees Kansas City Royals game, okay, at Yankee Stadium. Now, there's 50,000 people in the stands. They're on national TV. And George Brett, who was a great ball player for Kansas City, was up at bat. Hit a ground ball to shortstop, went to first base. He beat the throw at first, but Ronnie yelled safe, but gave the out sign. So Ronnie very nicely walked up to George and said, George, come here. You know you're safe, and I know you're safe. 50,000 people in a national television audience think you're out, so you're out. George, but see, here's good ball players. George just laughed and walked off the field because he knew later on Ronnie would give it back to him another way.
Right.
But see, people that really love sport and good sports players, you know, they understand that. Yeah, they get a little crazy sometimes, but they understand that and they know the give and take of things when you come right down to it. You learn that after a while, you know, so you have to learn the whole concept of a sport. And that's where I think the thing about sports becoming teachable things again, I wish they would, but I get scared sometimes to watch. I mean, I know you think I'm in love with technology, Loretta.
Yes,
but I think technology sometimes is actually taking over so many things in our society. We got to be careful. There's got to be balance in everything that we do. You know, and same thing when it comes to sports. You know, you think about it for a minute. You're coaching a team, and there's that one kid who's trying his best to play. And so basically, you want to give him some time in the game so he gets some experience. Then you have parents come to you after the game and say, why'd you put him in? He's not good enough to play in this team, and that kind of stuff. And what I used to say, I can work with your children when I coach baseball, but I wish the heck they would ban people from the stands. I would have loved to talk to coach during the pandemic when there was nobody in the stands.
There you go.
We're nice and peaceful, you know, because I think a lot of the problems come from pressure and anticipation and also expectations. You know, I think that's something that really, we see this in the world that we live in, that we work in, where people have gotten into a lot of trouble over expectations. I expect you to be a certain thing, and then to push people to perform. And sometimes they do that because they're performing for them, not for the kid.
And you talked a little bit about competition, but competition can be positive also. That's learning life.
Right.
But now what I'm seeing is, again, the pendulum swinging where all of a sudden everybody gets a trophy, even though Johnny doesn't really deserve it. He didn't earn it.
Well, I think there's a good point to that too. I think we go overboard with a lot of our sports stuff in that direction. It's nice to be able to actually earn something, but at the same time, we have to have a spirit in earning it. In most good programs, they have rules and regulations where every kid on the bench in the team has to play a certain amount of time every game, which I think is great. But some places don't do that. But then you get into what I call the war of the coaches. And coaches got to grow up a little bit too and realize that it's not just about them. I remember when I was doing, the playoff games for the Little League, people that are competing and different townships are competing against each other. Oh boy, So Cherry Hill was playing Franklinville. The Franklinville coach came over to me and said, before the game even started, he said, "I'm protesting the game. I want to put under protest." I said, "The game isn't even starting yet. What are you protesting?" He said, "The coach, the team is not dressed properly."
Oh, no.
Said, what the hell? Well, he brought the rule book out. The coaches are supposed to wear khaki pants with a blazer. Well, he had a blazer with khaki Bermudas on. I says, "Oh my God, here we go. The damn game didn't even start yet." I went over to the stands. I saw a guy with khaki pants. I said, "Come here." I said, "I got the coach and him. Go in the bathroom and change." I came out with his khaki pants. "You happy now? Can we play the game?" It's almost like you got to be not only an umpire or a referee or anything like that. You got to be a counselor. You got to be a therapist. This kind of stuff and everything else. Thing I used to love doing to coaches in basketball. And it comes from our 12-step programs. Okay. When they would yell at me about a call, I'd run by and say, "Thanks for sharing."
And what was their reaction?
They look at me like, ah. And they say to the kids, what's this thanks for sharing thing? I say, "Thank you very much for sharing that. Have a nice day." And they would get crazy. They didn't know how to handle it because they would want to get into an argument. "Oh, I want to argue. I made a call. Call's over. It's done. You're going to argue for the next 3 weeks." But see, that's one of the games that gets played in sports too. We look for an advantage.
Right.
Come on. But you learn the unwritten rules after a while. One of my favorite rules I used to love in umpire in baseball. It's called the rear end rule.
Uh-oh.
When you're behind home plate and a coach comes and argues the call at the plate, he's saying the guy was safe when I called him out, that kind of stuff and everything else. You let him argue for a while. Then there's an unwritten rule that most good coaches know. I'll listen to it for a while. Then I take the brush out to brush the plate off with. I will turn my rear end to the coach and brush the plate off.
Okay.
There's a message. Now, if I put my rear end to you and brush the plate off, it means shut up before I stand up or you're gone.
Right.
But
I like that.
Most good coaches know those little things because they've been in the game for a while. They understand the game. They understand, there's going to be a little bit of arguments. That's all part of it. You expect that. But you have to know the game, which is important. And that's what's important in any game we play. Just like in life. We live life. We're involved in business and stuff to this effect. You have to know what you're doing. I know in my case it's different because I would depend on St. Michael to be my.
That's true.
Okay. But, again, you have to realize as the world turns, we have to turn with it. That's all part of it. So there's always adjustment taking place. You heard in my talks a lot of times I talk about adjustment. We're always adjusting in life. And ball players know how to adjust too. That's one of the greatest things they can learn. You can learn that in sports. And that is how to be able to adjust to situations. If something isn't working, then stop doing it and go to something else.
Sounds like a life lesson to me, Vince.
Big life lesson. But it's a life lesson. But sports are supposed to be life lessons, and we learn from them. You know, but we have to have that little bit of pizzazz and color in sports too. You know, and unfortunately, we look at society and we see how the color barrier, the African American barrier was broken. And we see Jackie Robinson as a good example of that, what he went through. But I got to give Jackie a lot of credit. He had character. He knew what he was going to go through, and yet he persevered. And Branch Rickey used to say to him all the time, just remember, you don't blow your stack, you don't get mad. If you do, you wait till after the game and go punch a wall someplace. But you got to stick with it. You got to stick with it. And eventually it will change. And he was right. But see, that we need that kind of character to be able to stick with something and not just give up because it didn't work. And that's what happens a lot of times today. Well, you know, we didn't win, so I'm not playing anymore. I mean, no, you don't do that. But you learn and you talk to each other. You learn from each other. You learn from situations in life. You know, and sports are supposed to teach that. And that's where we need people that have more dedication and people know what they're doing to understand the process of it and how it works. And then you have that little sense of humor thing you throw in there too, which is a lot of fun.
That's for sure.
One of my favorite stories in umpiring baseball. Okay, you have to understand when the ball's alive. You know, it doesn't mean it has. I mean, the play's in action. Okay. Well, I was a base umpire, and I called the guy out at second base on a force out, and then the second baseman threw to the third baseman because the other player was running for third. Okay, so I called the guy out at second. The coach came running out of the dugout onto the field to scream at me and yell at me, and the play was still going on. And so I listened to him yell, and I said, excuse me, I said, but I got to explain something to you. You're out of the game. You're gone. He said, well, what are you throwing me out for? I said, well, because you threw yourself out. What do you mean? Because you don't know the game. First of all, you never, ever, ever come out on the field when a live play is in action. That's automatic ejection. But you have to realize something. Also, it's your responsibility as a coach, if you want to talk to me, to call timeout after the play is over and then walk out to talk. And so I said, I didn't throw you out. You threw yourself out. And it took him a while to begin to understand that. But see, that's understanding the rules of the game, how the game works. And that's people learning about that stuff. I believe years ago, we had clinics where kids were taught. For people learning how to coach, they were taught. They were taught the rules. They went over the rules and how it works and this kind of stuff. We've gotten totally away from that. Now it's just about, we got to get the best kids. We got to import them from other places if we have to. Exploitation is not only up at the top, now it's moving down to the bottom. Drug addiction is another big thing. Randy Grimes, who played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was a speaker at one of our breakfasts quite a number of years ago. He's a recovering addict, and he has no problems with me saying that. And basically, he told this story, and he said he was the center for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when he got injured, he went in the clubhouse, and they would shoot him up with all kinds of dope, get him back on the field. And the players had to do that because they would lose their job. They would lose their livelihood. And so a lot of guys ended up on drugs and alcohol because they went towards it to be able to function and get through and not have to be somebody take their place, especially as they got older. And then the other thing we have to teach people too is how to be able to play a sport so they don't hurt and destroy their body. But unfortunately, the world today with cheating, money, fantasies, all this kind of stuff and everything else. It's going to a whole different direction. I laugh when CP told us that Las Vegas actually bets on who's going to win the coin toss for the Super Bowl game. They actually run a whole betting thing just on that one thing, who's going to win the toss. So now we're starting to bet on little things here, little things there, back and forth, So we're creating a world of addiction, a world of insanity. And it's not what it's supposed to be. That's simple.
Well, Vince, I can't thank you enough. I think this was a great look at spirituality in sports. I feel like running out and agreeing to coach basketball and field hockey.
Come and do it.
But I played under the rules where there were 6 girls that played on a team, not 5. So I think I might be a little outdated.
Well, same thing in basketball. I used to referee when there were six girls on a girls' basketball team.
Right.
2 of them were allowed to cross the center line.
Correct.
They only played defense.
You had defense in your forwards,
right.
And you had 2 rovers.
Right. And
I was a rover and I was a center, so I got to move.
I know, and that was amazing. Things have changed so much in different directions, as you come down to it.
Absolutely.
One of my funny stories, I got lots of stories, by the way. I was refereeing a basketball game, and this kid went up for a layup, and of course they wear these shorts now that come down to your knees just about, and they're big. And so his underwear was showing. Went up for a layup, and we kind of got a view of his underpants. So I called timeout, and I brought the kid over to the coach, and I said, either put a belt on him or tie a rope around him. Otherwise, he's not playing. The coach said, what? I said, yeah. Or, give him a pair of pants that fits. We don't want a display of his underwear every time he goes up for a shot. And the coach actually got rope and tied it around him.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Because he was a good ball player. But, you get caught up in all that craziness, that insanity, and that stuff in that direction. It's fun. You got to look at life, and you got to be characters in life. And that's what it's really all about. We're all characters in one way or another.
Absolutely.
I know. Thank you, Carol.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, Vince, for joining us, and thank all of you for joining us. And I believe our next podcast is on May 13th, and it is about compassionate fatigue. So I hope you will join us.